Hi there! This is the third video about sewing a puffer jacket. In the second video, we've stopped on assembling the lining, and our next step is attaching it to the coat. Pin the lining of the quilted main body of the puffer jacket at their button edges together, right sides inside. Their side seams should coincide. Stitch with a 1 cm seam allowance. Turn the seam allowance to the lining and press. Cut the seam allowance by 2 mm in several places. There should be a small pleat at the bottom of each front lining part. Secure it with pins and then by machine stitches. Let's attach loop buttonholes to the left central part of our coat. There are 2 of them in the pattern, but my future self highly recommends adding extra 1 or 2 below these ones, as the magnetic snaps happened to fail a strong wind test. Loop's length depends on the button size, obviously. Make it a few millimeters larger. And don't forget about seam allowances. I secured the loops by hands first, and then stitched them on by machine. Pin 2 central front parts together, right sides inside, at their bottom first and then all the way around the central seam. Place the pins parallel the edges, not to damage the waterproof fabric features of our future coat. All the marks should coincide. Stitch with a 7 mm seam allowance in one go. Turn the thin out and check that there are no pin tucks at the front side. If you now look closely at the right central part's bottom corner, you'll see that it is not equal to 90 degrees. That's why we turn the thin inside out again and transfer a special line to it from the pattern. I hand-stitched the layers together using this line and checked that I liked the result. Then made a line of machine stitches. Now we have a nice square corner. Turn the thin inside out once again and cut the seam allowances by 2 mm all the way around. Cut the loop buttonholes extra fabric off. Do the same with the corners. And then, as usual, open the seam allowances and hand stitch them to the insulation all the way around. Turn the central front part out, check that the corners are neat. Pin the coat's main body to the central front part and the lining to the central front part's facing, right sides inside. All the marks should coincide. Stitch all the way around with a 1 cm seam allowance. Turn the puffer jacket out through the hole we left earlier in the lining's left side seam and check if there are any unwanted pin tucks there. Here I show how the coat's bottom look from the inside after all the parts are stitched together. And as usual, cut the insulation seam allowances by 2 mm. Open the seam allowances and hand stitch them to the insulation all the way around. I skipped the seam allowances at the lining's side. When stitching at the non-fusible interfacing area, be careful not to stitch through the main material. Let's attach our sleeves lining to that of the main material. I pin them together with some safety pins at several places at first. Then turn the sleeve inside out through the hole in the lining and pin the lining to the sleeve's lower edge properly. The cuff should be inside at the time. Then I replace the pins with hand stitches. Make a line of machine stitches exactly over the cuff seam. Seam allowance is 1 cm. Repeat for the second sleeve. Then I attach the sleeves lining to the main material at several places by hand, at the sleeve's upper and lower points at the armhole. I make chain stitches like in crocheting, but with fingers. After that, we need to attach the side front parts seam allowances to those of the lining plus facing through the lining's side seam technical opening. Stitch close to the previous seam all the way around. Place the coat's bottom on the table and pin its bottom facing to the insulation. Don't touch the main material at the right side of the puffer jacket. Then hand-stitch the facing to the insulation through the technical opening, removing the pins. Let's close the technical openings. Pull the lining's side seam technical opening area through the sleeves one and pin its seam allowances together. Stitch with a 1 cm seam allowance. Cut the excess threads off. Return the lining to its place. Close the sleeve opening. Pin the edges together and then stitch 1 mm off the edge. And a final touch. Let's sew on buttons. I close the puffer jacket on its magnetic snaps and mark the places where our buttons should go. A loop buttonhole's position helped me with that. And wow, that's it! Our puffer jacket is waiting us to wear it. Do pat yourself on the back if you sewed with me. We've made it! Message me in the comments about your favorite parts and difficulties in sewing this puffer coat. And see you in my next videos. Bye!